In this video, I will go over the 5 do's and don'ts on how to beat a big hitting singles tennis player. I will use an example that I recently featured on my tennis channel against Ridley, who is currently a freshman at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, which is a nationally ranked Division III men's tennis program. I will leave a link to that match play in this corner if you guys do want to check it out. Ridley won the 2019 boys high school state title in doubles for Wisconsin with his older brother Jaden as his partner. Jaden is also a very high-level tennis player in his own right. Keep in mind that this match play footage that I will be using as an example is probably around the 5.0 NTRP rating system, a rating system that the USTA uses, and that translates to anywhere between an 8 and a 9.5 UTR. But this can be applicable across all different levels. So if I were you, I would take bits and pieces that I will be talking about so you guys can apply it in your own singles match if you ever come across a big hitting tennis player. As always, we want to define what a big hitter actually means so we have more of a clear picture of what type of opponent we are talking about. A big hitting opponent is typically someone that is taller and or stronger than you, has more weapons than you, mainly the serve and or forehand. Their normal ball height when crossing the net is nearly not as high as yours. And along with that, they typically hit a little bit of a flatter ball. They don't have as much topspin as you on a shot-by-shot basis. They typically try to end the point on their terms, and they aren't nearly as comfortable as you on defense. They hate being on defense. You might be wondering why these 6 points are in comparison to you, the individual that is watching this tutorial. Well, it's because tennis is all relative. Tennis players do have certain tendencies they fall on. If there is a type of game style that you want me to analyze to help you win more matches, do me a favor and leave a comment down in the section below, and I'll see what I can get going for you guys. I'm here for you. I want you guys to play more tennis and win more tennis matches. So let's take a look at the very first part of what not to do against a big hitting tennis player. So if you look at my strategy in this point, or at least what transpired, besides that horrible unforced backhand down the line, I was hitting everything to his weapon and letting him get into a groove, which is what you don't want someone to do when they have a very big penetrating forehand, such as Ridley. So what's happening here is I'm getting pushed back a little bit, which is perfectly fine. I'm leaving the ball short, but I'm making no attempt to either change the pace, and I'm making no attempt to hit it to his weaker wing. He hasn't hit a backhand yet. And then this backhand unforced error by me is extremely wrong in many different aspects. One, it's high over the net down the line with my weight back. Probably not a high percentage shot. Number two, and this is actually the more important one in my opinion, I'm about 5 to 6 feet behind the baseline. Again, 5 to 6 feet behind the baseline, going over the high part of the net, it's not going to end up pretty for me. So tip number 1, don't go for too much when you are completely out of position. Just because someone goes for a shot they shouldn't have and they're completely out of position doesn't necessarily mean it's like a big slappy ground stroke off the forehand or a backhand wing like in the previous example. In this example, it's more of a finesse shot that was completely out of position and surprising in a not good way, because overall this baseline drop shot with this really good foot stomp was completely uncalled for. It was a good grindy point, and I should have been a lot more patient playing to Ridley's backhand probably and changing it up a little bit. But this drop shot from the baseline was a 1.5 feet behind the baseline, and when the ball landed in the other court, it was nowhere near the designated singles part of that tennis court. So keep in mind, even for these finesse shots, you must be in a very good position to execute it, and for good reason as well. Side note, I think if that ball did land in, which it obviously wasn't, Ridley could have had a play on it. So even if it was in, it was still a bad choice. This very next point was one of the first points, and it really set the tone for the entire match, which planted a negative feeling in my head of approaching to the net, especially off of Ridley's stronger side, which happens to be his forehand. Now in this point, Ridley did hit a weak return, which is good, but when I was approaching on it, I was barely inside of the baseline, so I was out of position to begin with when I first made that shot after he returned it short. But my shot, my quote-unquote approach shot, was barely past the service line, and it had way too much spin and way too much height, and that in turn gave Ridley a chance to not only react, but to send an aggressive message for the next shot that happened to be a passing shot from basically the doubles alley on his side of the court, and I'm not even anywhere near where the ball was going to land. Just because I'm at the net, just because you're at the net, doesn't necessarily mean you're on offense. In this case, I was completely on defense, even though I was a lot closer to the net than he was. And I can also argue that based on where Ridley was when he hit this passing shot, he didn't have to go down the line. He also could have had a play of going cross court and rolling it for another winner. But again, props to Ridley for hitting a strong passing shot because of my weak ass return. Truth be told, not all bad ideas actually turn out bad. In this case, my bad decision of this next forehand actually not only got me a winner, but that was actually set point. Now, just because you hit a winner doesn't necessarily mean you made right decisions to get to that conclusion. Likewise, just because you made really good decisions doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn out the way you expect it to. You're hoping it does, but that's not always the case in tennis, and that's not always the case in life. So, in this example, I was able to predict that Ridley was going to hit a somewhat weak backhand to my backhand part of the court, so that's why I did set up for a forehand. However, if you really take a closer look at this, my left foot, my front foot, is barely on the baseline. When I made contact with the ball, it was well below the level of the net. When I'm going inside in for this forehand, not only am I going for the higher part of the net, not only am I going for the space that has the less distance between where it needs to drop in order for the ball to be in, but also going inside in this position, it's to Ridley's strength, his forehand. And yes, it was a left court winner, and it did win me the set, but in all honesty, it wasn't really in good taste. That was a bad move that just happens to turn out pretty well. Do me a favor and hit that like button, and consider hitting subscribe for more original tennis content, so more tennis players like yourself have better access to this type of coaching and this type of information. I also live stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central Time if you guys have any questions that I don't get to down in the comments section below. I also did release a Discord server to the public, so tennis-minded people such as yourself have a good place to ask common questions and also some uncommon questions. I'll leave a link to that Discord down in the description below. Thanks. So with all this talk about being in the right position at the right time instead of doing something stupid when you're completely out of position, you're probably wondering, well, what's the right way to apply enough pressure? Well, here's a pretty good example of that. So this next point is going to be a second serve at a fairly weak return, and I'm on the defense for the most part of this. It's a pretty good backhand. Pretty heavy hitting ball, but that's why I pulled the trigger. Where the setup shot in this point was not actually the one where he hits a backhand unforced error at the bottom of the net tape, but it's actually the shot before that. It's that forehand that was relatively deep and high spinning that really pushed him out of position for me to have the opportunity to rip it firmly down the line. This forehand that lands extremely close to the single sideline and about 2 to 3 feet inside of the baseline really got Ridley out of position for me to be able to pull the trigger, hit a flatter type of ball to his weaker wing, and he didn't have his legs underneath him enough, and it got him to make an unforced error. So if you guys are able to apply pressure the correct way in a safe yet aggressive manner at the right time, your chances of beating a big hitter around your level is gonna skyrocket. It's no secret, big hitters love the highlight reel. They love making it to that ESPN top 10 shots of the day. You know what? Let them go for it. See what happens. Yeah, they might hit an amazing blazing winner once every 2 to 3 games. That's fine. But chances are with you that they're going to be making a lot more unforced errors than those amazing blazing winners that'll get them on the top 10 YouTubes of the day. For example, pretty good setup point, running around, and boom. He's going for way too much off of a slice, which he's not very comfortable with. This is very similar to the example I showed a few points ago of me winning set point with an inside-in forehand that hit the net cord, but in all honesty, it was a really stupid shot. It's kind of the reverse of that, where he just did not like that slice. It was way too low. No, not this one. Way too low. He's going over the high part of the net. He clipped the net tape and it just didn't go over. Just like that. Boom. Go ahead. Let the big hitters go for low percentage shots. You'll win in the end. This is my favorite pointer for you guys. It's kind of what I'm an expert at. See that slice? That is such ugly defense, because not only is it slice, but it's a slice they're not really expecting, because although you see Roger Federer, Nadal, and even Djokovic do that forehand squash shot, it still takes people by surprise around the amateur club level type of tennis player. And it is absolutely hideous, and there's no way it's an offensive shot, but it just dies. And I think Ridley did hit it. But that is a shot in the arsenal that is necessary for someone like me who is a completely defensive tennis player. Of just extremely ugly tennis on my part, which I'm extremely proud of, actually. Low percentage, but still made it. During some of the shots in this rally, I felt like I was just clinging on to dear life, where I even just kind of pushed that backhand. That forehand is starting to sink low. Another forehand slice, squash shot that is in the middle of no man's land, almost tricked him up, literally. Slicing again, and just playing extremely ugly defense. The thing is, it works. I'm on defense 80% of this point, and he happened to get an unforced error at the net because I think he got impatient. He was just sick of me getting every single ball, most of these balls being underspin, somewhat close to the baseline. He couldn't make a play on it. He was just plugging away at that inside-out, inside-in forehand. Good for him. And he got there in time, but he just got way too impatient because he just put a little bit too much oomph behind that kind of shovel forehand volley where he made the error because he wanted to end it. A better player, in my opinion, at least from my perspective, what he should have done was shovel that forehand cross court. And it's no secret that I actually like my backhand to pass and flatten out rather than my forehand. So what he should have done was shovel that forehand cross court and then guard down the line for that down the line passing shot and leave that roller of a cross court forehand passing shot open for me. But he should have let me play one more ball, but in all honesty, I think he was just absolutely sick of it. And that's the type of tennis I like to play. Defense wins championships. So, another pointer. Play ugly, scrappy defense when absolutely necessary. Alright, at this point, a nice change of pace. Yeah, that's the one. He hates those. So, yes, that was an extremely bad unforced error. But I was able to get him to that position because, especially on my backhand, which is my favorite wing from the baseline, my backhands were... Oh, that was the point before. My backhands really did change the pace and the rhythm of the point. Not only because of underspin, but in case you haven't guys noticed, I do implement a little bit of side spin to really catch him off the guard, especially that one. Players hate that one. Where you can definitely see that I carve around it to have the ball spin away from my opponent. This one. Boom. In that position, I actually could have hit a forehand. I could have hit a top spin drive backhand either cross court or down the line, but I consciously chose to hit an unorthodox slicing wedge-ish kind of shot to throw him off guard. And then I believe the next one, that next slice I hit to his backhand, is a really bad miss by him. Probably because he was thinking about that side spin backhand slice I hit about 3 or 4 shots ago. Let's look at another example. This one's a little bit of a longer one. Good down the line backhand by me. Another one of those awkward slices. That's the one. That is the one. And you can visually tell he's not exactly happy with it. So if you guys enjoyed that type of kind of video analysis and technical breakdown and strategy for a certain type of tennis player and how to beat them on the singles tennis court, again, please leave a comment down in the section below on what game style you'd like me to break down next. And if you haven't already, hit like, considering subscribe for more original tennis content. And hopefully, I'll see you guys on my live stream Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Time. As always, happy hitting.